I'll call Michael Woodhouse until we have this resolved. This call goes to Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Some members know I'm the head of a parliamentary liaison friendship group with Arthritis New Zealand. And last week at a breakfast of that organisation, there was the release of a document which was entitled Assessing New Treatments for Arthritis, Assessing Their Value in Human Terms. And I sat through some amazing stories that patients had shared about how some of the new drugs that are now available have changed their lives. And it was really, I think, appropriate that these drugs, which were initially funded under Labour but significantly widened under this government, have absolutely transformed their lives. So I was delighted at recent announcements by the Minister of Health that the access to those drugs is going to be widened even further. And not only that, but thanks to this budget and the last two, Pharmac has been able to fund 52 new medicines, and increase access to another 51 medicines. And all of this has been possible because the combined pharmaceutical budget for 2011-2012 is now $770 million, more than 9% up on last year. And that's really consistent with the approach that this government has taken in funding Vote Health, in funding what's important to New Zealanders. Because what's important to New Zealanders is not policy analysts, it's not funding and planning managers, it's not the plethora of back office staff that grew like mushrooms under the previous government, just in the health sector alone. It's about more medicine, more surgery, faster radiation treatment, shorter stays in the emergency department, and better vaccination rates. And all of those things are already having a marked impact on the health of New Zealanders. But it's also warmer homes. And members on the other side who accuse this government of not doing enough for public health and health promotion, I say go and talk to the residents of the 180,000 houses that have been insulated under the Warm Up New Zealand Heat Smart initiative. Several $100 million. Well, the member says she started it. They talked a good game, and I want to compare that with Labour's promise during the 2008 election campaign with the Greens to invest $1 billion in home insulation. But that $1 billion was invested over 15 years. Less than $40 million per annum in real terms. And in just over 2 years, this government has invested over $400 million in real terms. So I'm very happy to debate with Ms Chadwick or any other member on the other side about the quality and the quantity of the program. That party talks, Mr Speaker. This government delivers, and it delivers exponentially greater numbers of insulated houses, and the public of New Zealand know that. Because that's compassionate conservatism, Mr Speaker. That's what a responsible government does in straitened times. Now, I want to talk about another area of significantly increased funding, because in this area, I think, holds the key to the difference between the left and the right, and that's in respect of our rail infrastructure. Now, it is true that on a point of principle, National didn't support the buyback of our rail network, and it certainly didn't support the previous government paying a price that was between $250 million and $500 million more than the fair value of that organisation. But we have it, and the National Government has committed billions of dollars of taxpayer funds, both operational and capital, as part of the turnaround plan for Kiwi Rail. And regardless of whether the taxpayers support that investment or not, what they do expect is for there to be every ounce of value extracted from the investment, not something that can be historically said about our rail services. Now, some of that investment was for the electrification of Auckland Rail, and some of it was for rolling stock. And 2 weeks ago, Kiwi Rail made some announcements about reductions in staff at the Hillside and Hutt engineering workshops. And of course that was met with quite a bit of disappointment and anger, and the member Ms Curran, in fact, last week challenged me to say where I was on this issue. Well, I'm very happy to do that, because she actually knows where I am on this issue. She and I have been part of a working group that was set up in Dunedin some 18 months ago to look at the opportunities that might be presented by the amount of money that the government was investing in rail, and in particular the electrification and the electric EMUs, the electric trains that were being tendered. Now, it quickly became apparent that Hillside did not have the necessary skills to build those carriages as a lead tenderer. And the focus of that group was to try and negotiate with and present Dunedin in its best light to the potential tenderers, which happened not to come from China, I have to say. But the other big option, of course, was for the several thousand flat-deck wagons that are required to increase the rolling stock. And Hillside did tender for that, and they came third. Now, that, of course, was extremely disappointing. But what we heard from the other side, Mr. Speaker, was that the government should immediately leap to rail's aid and do something about it. They were not specific about how they should do that, whether or not it would be a subsidy or a tariff. Regardless of that, it would be a return to the bad old days where price, quality and timeliness were not of paramount importance. So subsidies and tariffs, Mr. Speaker, but I'm not as doomy and gloomy as Ms Curran is about the future for Hillside, because I think they have very much a part to play in the future manufacturing infrastructure for Dunedin. Certainly if Ms Curran walks around with a dark cloud over her head, as she has over the last couple of years, much less a couple of weeks, then certainly one would perceive that Hillside doesn't have a future. I certainly don't believe that. And I certainly don't believe that a free trade agreement that was put in place by the previous Labour government and signed off by this government, with a country where we now have bilateral trade of several $billion, should not be put at risk by the sorts of protectionism that some in this House would have the government wrap around those industries. Because this is about quality and value for money. Well, I'm very encouraged to see that the members on the other side are agreeing with me, because there are plenty of other colleagues in that party that do not. Well, let's talk about procurement policies, because we do have a comparison with the previous Labour government insofar as the loan that was extended to the Wellington Regional Council for the tender of Matangi's, the electric trains for Wellington. Now, I'm really interested in what the expectations were on that purchaser, the Wellington Regional Council, when they were lent money by the Labour government. And do you know what that was? Nothing. Not a single expectation was placed. But there was the Labour Minister of Transport at the signing ceremony saying what a fantastic thing this was. No one from the unions were complaining. No one from the unions at that time was saying, where are the jobs for Kiwis? Why aren't we paying a little bit more to get these jobs done? Hut workshops was only a stone's throw away. Well, I find that remarkably inconsistent, Mr. Speaker, that now they are lions in opposition, aren't they? They're roaring about the benefit of Kiwi jobs and protecting their union mates. Well, here's what. I know those union people, and I know they deliver a damn good product. And they would be horrified to think that it would need their government assistance to prop them up in the future. There is a future for Hillside. There's a future for Hut, and I'm very, very encouraged by the sorts of noises that are being made, except perhaps by the member for Dunedin South. And it is job growth, isn't it? Because I've heard, I don't know how many times, the members on the other side say, where are the jobs? 170,000 jobs. I'll tell those members, I've just explained what I think, and that is that this is about value for money. Well, actually, the people on this side of the House don't keep running to their union mates when things go bad. We've got laws to pass and a government to be part of. And I'm sorry I'm not there. I would be very happy to, but I'm not going to leave this House to go and say what I've already said. I'm sure Ms Curran will be able to articulate that as well as she has over the last couple of weeks, at least. Because there are jobs to be had, there are opportunities to be taken. See, there it is. Where? Well, there's been a little matter of an earthquake. And about $9 billion to be spent in that city alone.
Sorry to interrupt
over
the
the
honourable
next 2
member.
years.
His time has come to expire. I call Claire Curran.